Gracias, bueno, por la invitación. Es un honor para mí estar aquí conversando con ustedes. Hi, Tom. Now I'm going to switch to English. I was saying I'm really honored to be here today, not only because of the event, but also because what you have done with Terracycle is truly an inspiration for a lot of entrepreneurs, including our startup, who are working in similar topics in Latin America. So thank you so much for being here today.
My pleasure.
Well, awesome. Well, I would like first to start this conversation with what your journey has been so far. So probably if you could tell us about the journey, all the achievements that we heard from Cecilia a few seconds ago, but still maybe listening from you, how it has been your journey, your achievements, and also what challenges you have faced along the journey with Terracycle.
Sure, absolutely. Where to begin? I think, for me, the important context in understanding the journey I have taken is I was born in a communist country, in Hungary, back in the early 80s, when it was still occupied by Russia as the USSR, and effectively was communist. And in 1986, Chernobyl occurred in the Ukraine, and the borders collapsed for a few days, and my parents were able to escape. So we left as political refugees. I was 4 at the time, to Germany, then Holland, Belgium, and finally, 3 years later, was able to seek asylum in Canada. And I mention this because, and then I grew up in Canada and went to university in the United States, in New Jersey, which is where I'm speaking to you from today. And I mention this because I had the privilege of going from communism to capitalism and absolutely fell in love with the idea of entrepreneurship or the American dream. It's amazing, but to be honest, probably for selfish reasons, I thought it was a good ticket to fame and fortune. And those have to some degree occurred. But I had this big turning point, I would say, when I went to university. And I remember one of the first classes I took at Princeton was Introduction to Economics. And the professor gets up on stage and asks a very reasonable opening question, which is, what is the purpose of business? And the answer she was looking for was to maximize profit to shareholders. And I get it, I get the role of profit and so on, but it felt like a very uninspired answer. I was hoping for something more inspiring, like make the world better, or make society better, or the planet, or something. And in my mind, I took that moment to rethink the role of profit. I think today the role of profit is not the purpose of business, but an indicator of health in a business. It's critically important. You have to be healthy, and health is profitability. And if you're profitable, you're going to flourish and grow and be around for a long time. And if you're not profitable, well, the opposite will occur, and at some point you'll go bankrupt. But then the purpose is not that. The purpose is how much it can benefit the world in some way, environment, society, perhaps both. And I was started to look for, concepts in the back of my mind around this theme, and I fell in love with garbage as a topic, and that was 20 years ago, and still today, because garbage is filled. Well, first, it's very purposeful to solve, but it is filled with phenomenal anomalies that can be innovated around. So, for example, we live in a very materialistic world. Our status in society is in many cases linked to how much stuff we possess. But isn't it interesting that everything we own will be property of a garbage company one day, with no exception? And 99% will be property of a garbage company within 1 year of purchase. It's also the only material we will pay someone to remove. In fact, that in some cases, the legal definition of garbage is a material that we are willing to pay to get rid of. And it goes on and on. It's filled with these strangenesses. So I felt, and also, the last thing to say is, for how big of a topic it is, how everything one day will be possessed by the garbage industry, isn't it wild that it is the least innovative industry per dollar of revenue it enjoys in the world? There's no industry that has lower dollar per revenue innovation than garbage, because it's just gross and smelly and dirty and all these things that are unappealing. And so it's a playground, I think, a wonderful, purposeful playground to bring about really compelling innovation and to create successful business models. And that's what got me interested in it. Today, Terracycle, as mentioned in the introduction, is in 21 countries. We've sustained straight growth for 20 years. We're about $100 million enterprise, if anyone's interested in scale from a revenue point of view. And we try to only do what normal garbage companies don't. And that is because, not that what they do is good or bad, or what we do is good or bad, but there's so much innovation that is not yet being attacked. So, that begins with, how do we collect and recycle things that are not recyclable? And then it goes to, how do we help integrate waste into products? So in the first division, for example, in Brazil, we run national recycling of sponges with 3M, all the way to coffee capsules and cosmetics and so on. It can go to integrating waste back into products, helping, for example, we built all of the Olympic podiums for the Tokyo Olympics from hard to recycle waste collected by the citizens of Japan. And you'll see very similar activity in Paris in the Olympics coming up. All the way to a new platform we have called Loop, which is about helping brands and retailers shift from disposable products, where the best thing to do is collect and recycle them and make them from recycled materials, to fully reusable containers. Like this here is how Haagen-Dazs ice cream with Nestle now is able to ship ice cream all the way to McDonald's coffee cups in reusable packaging or reusable containers. But it can go even more innovative. So a new division that recently was developed out of our incubator and now has graduated from there is our diagnostic division, which has the thesis that certain waste streams carry diagnosable samples. As an example, we have air filters in our air conditioning units that filter out the mold and mildew in our air. Well, wouldn't you be interested perhaps in, when you are replacing your air conditioning filter, to, instead of throw it out, send it, to our diagnostic division, who will analyze it and send you back a report on your air quality? Or later this year, you will see a platform launched with one of the world's biggest diaper brands, where you could do exactly that. You buy a little kit, you put a diaper into it, and it doesn't go to recycling like our first topic, or reuse like our third division, but it goes to a laboratory that analyzes the microbiome in the fecal sample in the diaper, and sends you back a report on the state of your child's health based on that analysis. And there's so many examples, and this is what I think is so exciting about innovating in this space, is that it's really critical. We are living in a massive and growing garbage crisis, but because of garbages or the undesirable nature of waste, it's an area unlike healthcare, or unlike IT, that is very unexplored.
Thank you so much, Tom. I think you are giving us the best idea about how to innovate in the sector. I rescue a lot what you said about innovation, because Latin America is known as the region with the least innovation in the waste sector. Like you said, there is no innovation, but Latin America specifically has less innovation. So it's very important to see all this, the big picture about many ideas and how you came up with them. And then I would like to ask, what are the challenges, and at the same time, what are the recommendations that you could make for all these circularity startups that are just beginning the operations? How has it been, not only the good things, but also the challenges and also the recommendations that you could tell us?
Yes, certainly. I have a couple I would focus on. So let me give some examples as I give you these recommendations, so they're not too philosophical. In our first division, recycling. So we first had to, and when you're going to innovate, I think it's very important to take a step back and really understand why the problem exists, instead of just accepting the problem and taking a step forward. So if I give you an example, like if you're going to innovate a new toothbrush, one way to do it is just take a step forward, which means you make the toothbrush slightly better. Maybe change the angles of the bristles and some different plastic it's made from, and voila, you have a new toothbrush. But I would recommend always taking a step back and thinking about, well, what's the purpose of a toothbrush? And that is likely oral hygiene. But then also take another step back. Why do we even have an oral hygiene problem to begin with? And begin there, because then your innovation may be so different, it may not even look like a toothbrush, and may achieve a solution to oral hygiene in a better, cheaper, and more convenient way. So let's do this with waste. We all understand that garbage is a man-made idea. It doesn't exist in nature. And today, a very small amount of waste goes into circular solutions. Most waste goes into linear solutions of landfilling or incineration. In Latin America, it will be a bit more landfilling. In Europe, it would be a bit more incineration. It's basically whatever is the cheapest way to dispose of the waste in accordance with the laws of the land. And so this begs a question of what makes something recyclable? And in the end, people think what makes something recyclable is a technical innovation, that the material is technically developed and that there is available infrastructure in a way that can flow and be recycled. When in fact, as you really deep dive into it, it's not the issue at all. The main issue in recycling and what makes something recyclable is whether a garbage company can make money. So if a garbage company can make money, like an aluminum can, it will happily collect and recycle it. Right? We have a joke in our Brazil division that aluminum is so valuable, you throw it out the window, and this is a joke, of course, someone will catch it and sell it at a cooperative before it hits the ground because it's so valuable. Now, of course, it's a little bit of a joke, but that is the case in a sense because the aluminum is so valuable. But something like a chip bag or a flexible wrapper, you throw it out the window in Sao Paulo, it's just going to hit the street and sit there because it is not worth the effort to pick it up and process it versus what the value will be. And so the issue that first division contemplates is this idea of how do we solve the economic problem? And we do that by getting some actor, it could be a brand, a retailer, to fund the solution. Now here comes the lesson, right? Usually, when we began our company, we would go to companies and say, hey, you have a garbage problem, and if you pay this amount of money, we're going to be able to set up a solution for you, which is equal to a responsibility tax, right? Now, and this is very similar in any sustainable innovation, is the sustainability innovator is going to go in and say, you have a palm oil problem or a waste problem or whatever it may be. And if you pay this money, we can help you solve the problem. And that only ever gets a small amount of money for a limited period of time. If you really want to get larger, more substantial amounts of investment and a greater period of time, what the big learning we had is we have to make sure that that investment can demonstrate more measurable value to the organization that is making the investment than the cost. And value is not what I think is value. I would say recycling and circular economy is value, but that doesn't matter. What matters is what does the organization who's paying the money think is value. So in a retailer, value could be foot traffic, right? Getting people to walk in the store. And in many cases, we focus then on really making sure that the recycling programs that a retailer runs, let's say Walmart running cosmetic recycling like they just started, all the way to pharma retailers running blister pack recycling, we try to demonstrate that is going to drive them more foot traffic than other ways of investing in driving foot traffic like advertising. So it's really about empathizing with the client on what is important to them. What are their key performance indicators? What will drive their value, whatever it is, and seeing how we can link what we want to achieve, which is in that example, recycling, to achieving that value. And the more it can be linked, the more it flourishes and grows incredibly quickly. So that's one. I'll give you just one other example, which is shifting over to a learning from our third division, which is on reusables. And, there's this classic question in sustainability of, will a consumer pay more for an organic banana? It's like this question that is asked all the time. And what I've learned in doing Loop is it's the wrong question to ask. Because what consumers want first and foremost is convenience. Convenience is like a door that people will go through, and only if the idea, the service, the product is convenient enough for them will they consider what are the features and benefits of the product and the price. So for example, in the world of reuse, there are three major ways a consumer can reuse a bottle of shampoo. One is they can buy concentrate or bulk and pour it in themselves at home and then add water perhaps. Another is a refill station at a store, where they take the bottle to a store, fill it at the store and take it back. The third is pre-fill, which is sort of like how beverages in Germany exist, or some countries in Latin America still have, reusable beer or Coca-Cola bottles in some countries, where it's already filled and then you just return the empty. We focused majorly on pre-fill because that is the only reuse system that has similar convenience to disposability. The other two do not, and they're greatly struggling as a result. But we have to even go further on. Convenience is everything, right? That is what we have to put on a pedestal in sustainability. So for example, one of the innovations we did in the Loop ecosystem is that today you can go to McDonald's in the UK, buy your coffee in a reusable Loop container, but drop it off at Tesco, where you buy your ice cream in a reusable container and then drop it off at Burger King. Because in the end, that was a huge lesson for me, is that convenience is the most and only important topic. Only when that is achieved does the features and benefits, and sustainability as a feature and a benefit, matter. And the big challenge that I see in sustainable innovation and entrepreneurs is the desire to, that their models require behavior change. Behavior change is ridiculously difficult. You have to, consistently invest in communication, marketing, and so on to do it. New people are born every day, so you have to keep repeatedly communicating, and it's incredibly difficult. What is to make sustainability work, it has to really focus on this idea of convenience, which is the second lesson, and then driving value that the person who's paying for it believes, as the first lesson. And then if that is achieved, then big transformations can occur. And I think, for example, in the electric, the transformation we're seeing from gas cars, like petrol cars, to electric cars is occurring because it's winning on those two functions. The electric cars today are just better. They're faster, they accelerate faster, so on and so forth. And because of the infrastructure on charging stations in many countries, it's also becoming as convenient. Without those two aspects, it would just be a sacrifice for someone to take part. And only 1 or 2% of the population is willing to sacrifice for sustainability.
Wow, thank you so much. I think there are a lot of insights for us. I'm learning a lot with what you're saying. So like a step back, not only forward, would be one of the most important things that you just said. Empathize with clients. I think that's something we usually forget. Learn about what our clients want, the KPIs and information that is valuable for them. And very important, convenience for users. I think those are like very important lines that you have just said. I'm going to ask you, what do you think are the trends now in the future in the circularity sector at the global level, and also in the USA that could, well, you have presence in many countries around the world. So you could tell us, what do you think it could serve as an inspiration for Latin America, our Latin American context?
Very good question. I think in doing this work for 20 years, what is really exciting is the world has measurably woken up to the issue of sustainability in the past few years. It was really end of 2017, early 2018. There was a huge transformation in the general public's understanding and a concern around the environment. You can measure it in Google search results over various key topics. You can measure it in consumer insights, but it was measurable. It was around that time that Sir David Attenborough put out Blue Planet 2. It was when Greta appeared, on the scene. And a huge other set of examples, but these similar sort of examples all happened late 2017, early 2018, and the world woke up. And I was actually very worried when in 2020 COVID came that people would shift their point of view, and they didn't. It only kept getting stronger. So that's really good news and produces tailwind if you are looking to innovate in sustainability, because without the consumer citizen concern, there's nothing, right? Because what's going to change companies to act more sustainable is not their internal desire to do so. This is for the general average, company. It's going to be citizens pushing them to, and the culture pushing. And that is happening now like it has never happened before. Because in the end, these organizations, whether they're brands or retailers or other organizations, are really a mirror to our desire. They are not the ones creating the desire, we are, and they're there to serve the desire. And that's usually a big misunderstanding. I think people think we're sheep and these big companies tell us what to do. It's not that at all. We are voting every day for what we want with what we buy and what we don't buy. And what are companies going out there doing market research, consumer insights to understand what we want and give it to us in the most convenient, affordable, and exciting way possible. And so that has been a massive, massive shift globally, measurable in every country in the world, no difference. And in fact, as we look at countries that you would call more emerging countries, countries with lower GDP per capita versus developed countries, higher GDP per capita, the consumer concern is actually higher as you go down in GDP per capita. That's really, really important, right? The negative, of course, is the investment opportunity is lower in countries that have less wealth than countries that have more wealth. Which is why, for example, in Latin America, we're able to run our business in Mexico and Brazil, but it's more challenging in the smaller countries for now, right? And we have to figure out what is the right way to achieve it. I think from a trend, so that's the first and most important mega trend, is this consumer or citizen waking up. What that's creating is sub-trends as a result. One is legislative trends. There is a huge movement recently in the world of waste to pass extended product responsibility legislation. This is packaging taxes that then can be reinvested for the country to improve what is collected and recycled and at what rate. We're also seeing DRS, which are deposit return schemes. Those are basically, you pay a deposit when you buy the product, which you get back when you return it as waste. These EPR really ends up strengthening the recycling infrastructure of a country, and DRS increases return rates. As a result of this legislation, we're also seeing bans. Just yesterday, New Jersey banned plastic bags. Seattle banned straws, and all over the world. Ireland, Spain, for example, in Valencia, banned 25 disposable product categories, from razor blades to all sorts of other things, unless they had recycling programs attached to them. So we're seeing bans come. There's all this exciting political movement that is happening all over the world. From that, what is happening because of the citizen trend and the political trend is companies are leaning in now. Because what companies want to do is they want to always be ahead of these trends. For an organization, it's better to voluntarily, solve an issue before laws are passed, forcing you to. That's always the goal. It's also better to be ahead of the consumer trend, because then you can predict it, plan for it, and leverage it, instead of being behind the consumer trend where you are maybe being harmed by it. And this is incredibly exciting for the entire circular economy and sustainability movement, is how that's happening. I mean, even our company, since we've been around for 20 years, but we grew 5x since 2008, 5 times, as a result of these trends.
Thank you, Tom, for this, because in Latin America, as you might know, we are going towards all these trends. Citizens, we are starting to waking up, but also all these regulations are right now happening in all of our countries. So I think it's very important that. And then my last question, probably you already told us a little bit about it, but what would be your advice for companies that really want to pitch a circularity strategy to a company that has not designed one yet, to convince the unconvinced? What would be the techniques?
So the first thing I would do is, when you look at a company and you go into a company that you want to work with, the first thing I would do, if they have a sustainability function, they may or may not, but if it's important to, do they have a sustainability function or do they not? If they do, it's very interesting to look at, where is that function sitting? So, for example, in some companies, sustainability is in the legal department. In many large organizations, the chief sustainability officer is also the general counsel, which means they view it as a legal opportunity or risk. It sometimes sits in communications. There are many companies where the chief communication officer is also the chief sustainability officer. That means they view it as a PR risk or opportunity. It could be housed in marketing. It could be housed in operations. Many cases, COOs are also CSOs. And why is this important? Is and immediately you can get a sense of, how does the organization view the function of sustainability? What is their purpose, their view of it? Then, no matter what, I would research that organization and find out what its goals are. Not what its sustainability goals are, but what are its core goals? Is it trying to attract and retain consumers? Is it trying to solve for competition? Is it trying to solve for legislative risk? Whatever it is, make sure you really understand what their core goals are. And then the challenge is to think about whether a general sustainability strategy or a specific one, whether attached to water or waste or climate change, how can implementing that help them with not sustainability, but their core goal? And the more you can frame it like that, the more the company is going to listen to you, right? Because that's what they're really everyday thinking about, right? Not sustainability. It is so important, to not go in with the illusion that, companies are focused beyond their core goals or on something other than maximizing profit. This is not it's not a bad thing. It's just how it is. And as sustainability practitioners, what we need to do is think about how we can help them achieve those goals while, really helping the world be better. If we instead just go in and talk about sustainability as a risk, they're going to view the investment or they're going to think to themselves, how do I spend the least amount of money to solve this risk? And then whatever you're pitching will never be strong because you need resources to be able to make whatever activity is strong and flourish.
Awesome, Tom. Thank you so much. And I think this falls again in getting to know your client, getting to know more the people that are behind the companies and behind all these positions in the companies to see what matters to them. And I think that's like a really good advice. And that's something that I take with me as an entrepreneur. Get to learn to know all the people that work with you, all the clients, all the users. And I think that's a very important message that you have sent us today for all of us. So, well, we run out of time, and I want to thank you, Tom, for all the time that you have put on this in this moment. And I really want to thank also the Cumbre of the Negocios Verdes de América Latina for having you here today. So yes, thank you so much, and hopefully we can keep in touch to keep doing great things in Latin America as well. So yes,
thank you so much. I wish everyone, thank you all for attending. It was a real pleasure to be with you today, and wish you a wonderful rest of day.